right, good. Well, welcome to today's session. This is IIUSA's Frequently Asked Questions Advocacy webinar. I'm Mariza, McKee, a partner at Kutak, and I serve on IIUSA's Board of Directors. I'll be our moderator today as we discuss FAQs related to IIUSA's work to advocate for reauthorization of the EB-5 Regional Center program on June 30th of this year. I'm joined today by three of my fellow IIUSA board members. We've got with us today Bob Kraft, IIUSA President and CEO of FirstPathway Partners. We've got Cletus Weber, co-founder of Peng and Weber. And we have Deacon, Managing Director of Pine State Regional Center. Welcome to our panel and thank you for being with us today. So the purpose of our session is just to discuss the most common questions that we've received about the work that IIUSA is doing related to reauthorization this year. Our attendees are invited and encouraged, as Ashley said, to submit questions during today's session to education@iiusa.org. If we don't cover them in our session today, then we'll definitely read those and look to address them in another forum. After the session, there's going to be a print summary of what we've discussed here today available on IIUSA's website. So let's get started. The first question, just to make sure we're all on the same page about reauthorization, is for Cletus. Cletus, can you tell us what reauthorization refers to?
Sure. The EB-5 program itself is permanently in the statute. The Regional Center program was added in 1993, and it was added as a pilot program, and so it had an expiration date. So it's just like any other program that you'll find in any other statute, except for it has a termination date on it. And so over the last almost 30 years, Congress has always changed the date and kept extending it and so on. So that's what we're talking about is the most recent reauthorization was set to expire in June 30 of 2021. And so that's what we're talking about is, what's going to happen and what's possible and that kind of thing. But that's what the issue of reauthorization is all about.
Thanks for that, Cletus. That's really helpful to make sure we're all talking about the same thing. Bob, next question maybe you could handle for us. So does IIUSA expect reauthorization on June 30th?
Yes, and yes. We actually are very optimistic about the program being authorized. The EB-5 program has been around for 29, 30 years, and it has bipartisan support. It has been a huge contributor to our economy. It's been very good for investors from overseas. We have bipartisan support in both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and both the House and the Senate are very supportive of the program. So IIUSA has been leading the effort to have a unified voice within the industry, which we have. We'll talk a little bit about the separation of the bill from the omnibus package later, but just overall, we're very optimistic about the support we have, the benefit it brings to the United States and to investors, and feel very bullish about the program being improved and reauthorized.
Thank you for that, Bob. Thank you. And so if it's something we're used to seeing and it happens often that we get a reauthorization and we expect it, then why are we talking about it now? Resh, maybe you could take this one for us. What's different about reauthorization this year?
Sure. Well, it really builds on what Cletus and Bob were talking about in terms of all the different reauthorizations that have occurred over the life of the program. This will be expected to be reauthorized through standalone legislation. Typically in the past, as Bob was saying, you have the reauthorization of the EB-5 program that's coupled with spending bill, omnibus or continuing resolution, but a spending bill, which is due pass legislation. So it's a question of, not a question of whether that spending bill would pass. It's sometimes a question of delay, but it always, the reauthorization riding on the spending bill has always been reauthorized, always been passed on a regular basis. This time, As Bob was alluding to, they've decoupled the EB-5 reauthorization with the spending bill. Spending bill goes through September 30 of this year, which is the end of the fiscal year for federal government, and the EB-5 program is set to sunset on June 30. So this year we have a decoupled standalone bill that we're expecting that gives us actually, quite frankly, some opportunities to look at things a little bit differently, and we are.
Yeah, so decoupled just referring to the fact that it's been separated from the spending bill.
Right, fancy word for separating.
Yes, yeah, we keep seeing that word decoupled, and it doesn't sound pleasant, but it really just means separated from.
It's not as bad as it sounds.
All right, so Bob, tell us a little bit about IIUSA's involvement in reauthorization. You know, what are we doing? Kind of give us the lay of the land on that.
Yeah, I mean, the IIUSA organization represents over 95% of the EB-5 dollars invested in the United States. And even the board that we have as part of this call represents the whole country pretty much. I mean, Cletus is from Seattle, Mariza, you're in Chicago, I'm in Milwaukee, Rush is in Arkansas. And the board reflects, you know, full country representation. The program itself has had such a great impact on the country. And as I said earlier, it has bipartisan support, you know, across both aisles. So, you know, we have worked really hard, IIUSA, to bring together the full industry. There are other people that participate in the program. Not only do you have the regional center community, but you've got the legal community, developers, builders, banking. I mean, it's a huge industry when you look at this whole thing. And it's taken us years to get to a point where we have one voice representing the industry, talking about the importance of integrity reforms and long-term reauthorization. IIUSA has developed a very, very strong relationship with Senator Grassley and Senator Leahy's office. And they really are the subject matter experts, and they've been the big advocates for the program. They've been interested in improving the program to protect the investors for a long time. We have stood side by side with them, and for a number of reasons, we just haven't been able to get there in the past. But the level of trust with those offices and with IIUSA probably at a point it's never been at before. And again, this is the only bill that's going to be introduced. IIUSA has done, I believe, a very good job of educating the industry, bringing together a coalition of very different people that are impacted by the benefits of EB-5. For instance, the Coalition of Mayors. We have chambers of commerce that are members, and the list goes on. And it's a tribute to Aaron Grau and their lobbying group. So we fully believe we have a very, very strong a grassroots organization that's been put in place to support legislation. Plus the two senators that are sponsoring the bill, and there are others that will be signing on to it, have been working hard to put together a program that protects the investor, that improves the integrity of the program in general, which actually protects the regional centers and all the practitioners that operate within EB-5. And it's good for everybody. The recommended changes are business friendly. They work. It'll create a few more steps for us to go through, but those that have been in the business for any length of time are already doing those for most, in most instances. We've also done a very good job on the media side. IIUSA has hired a media group out of New York City that is helping to spread the word on EB-5 and the importance it'll play in the economic recovery and the good it's done in the past. Billions and billions and hundreds of thousands of jobs have been created by the EB-5 program. And if we get this reauthorized for 5 years, that'll set us up for improving the program even further. We're also actively communicating with Congress, not just the Grassley-Leahy offices, but the entirety of Congress. And I can say, and this is why we're confident about the program being passed as a standalone bill, we have tremendous support. It's not even close. So unlike what we see in other bills that are presented right now, we've got a split Congress, a split House, split Senate. We have full support across all parties. And we also have the support of the White House. So we feel very, very good about where we are right now and where we're going to go.
Thank you for that, Bob. That's a good 10,000 foot view for us there. And when we're talking about the Grassley-Leahy bill, we'll refer to it as the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Bill, which I believe is what it had been titled in drafts. So that's the one we're talking about, right, Bob?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, so Rush, has that bill been introduced yet?
That's a good question. And the answer is no, not yet. But as Bob was alluding to, it's been heavily negotiated with IIUSA. IIUSA has voted unanimously, the board of IIUSA, to support that measure. And the latest word we had just as of yesterday is the plan is to introduce that bill before the Passover/Easter recess. So that would be by the end of this month, we're expecting this bill to be introduced.
Yeah, so we're very hopeful that the answer to the question I just asked will change soon.
Exactly. Stay tuned for a couple weeks from now. We hope to be able to answer yes.
That's right. That's right. Well, Bob, I'm going to impose upon you again, if that's all right, since you've been so closely involved in these negotiations over the years with Grassley and Leahy's offices. What's in that bill? What's in the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Bill?
Well, again, I guess addressing it from a 10,000 foot level, the program, the new bill really addresses integrity issues to protect the investor. And that's something that we've advocated for a long time. But at the same time, it protects the good regional center operators, the good legal practitioners, and anybody that's involved in the total program. If you think about EB-5, and I talked about this a number of years ago at a Miami conference we had, that we sometimes think of the program as just a regional center program, but really the number one important person or individuals to protect are the investors. So if we start with the investor at the top of the pyramid, and then the regional centers are the facilitators of the program, but in concert with the regional center, you have developers, builders, lawyers that practice in a number of different areas because of the complexity of the program, communities, you know, it goes on and on and on. Local employees that are affected and have opportunities for jobs because of what we do. So if the program doesn't run properly or isn't run properly ethically with high integrity, number one, the investor gets hurt, which we can't allow to happen. And then there's a trickle-down effect all the way through the system, affecting literally hundreds of thousands of people. So we've always believed that integrity reforms are important for the long-term good of the program. And like any other programs that or industries that start up in the country, you know, things take off. It's a little bit of the Wild West. And then over time, you tighten down, you tighten down, you tighten down to protect the program from bad actors and people that really maybe didn't know what they were doing when they got into it. They thought it was easy. And we've certainly experienced some of that. Well-intentioned, but didn't know what they didn't know, and people got hurt. So this really tightens the program up. I believe it really protects regional centers. It'll eliminate some of the folks that really aren't committed to the program and aren't in it for the long term for the right reasons. But the primary focus is on integrity improvements, protection for the investors, which without the investors, we don't have a program. So it's a great step forward. It'll put us in a position to go after some of the other changes the industry would like to see down the road, like derivative relief and more visas, et cetera, et cetera. But without this base bill in place, which Senator Grassley and Senator Leahy have been really the drivers on, the other things won't happen. So I think we're right there, and we have a unified industry behind it.
Thanks for that, Bob. I mean, I think that so many people have enjoyed the incredible opportunity that the EB-5 Regional Center program brings with it, but there's great responsibility as well. And I think that this bill goes a long way to help balance that opportunity with the responsibility, as you said, first and foremost to the investors. So thank you for that, Bob.
Well said.
And I know that we have a summary of that bill as it was proposed back in December of 2020 on the IIUSA website. There will be a link to that summary in the written version of the FAQs that will follow this webinar. So moving on, we know that we've got the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Bill as a front runner. Are there any other legislative proposals to reauthorize the Regional Center program? Maybe Rush could take this one.
Well, that's an easy one. No. there are no other proposals in bill form that have been suggested. The EB-5 Reform and Integrity measure is something that IIUSA supports. We have, as Bob was saying, we have, as an organization, worked closely with Senator Grassley and Senator Leahy's offices in trying to make sure that the bill is in its best form. It's easy to draft a bill that doesn't work very well in practical terms. So Senator Grassley and Leahy's offices have been very helpful in bringing us into the loop. We've had a team of IIUSA board members and attorneys who have looked at it and made suggestions on what might not be as practical as they have thought when they drafted. So we've gone through that process for several months. And because of that, this bill is very focused on the things that we can all agree on. We all want reauthorization, and everybody's fine with integrity measures. They just need to be practical. And that's what IIUSA has worked very closely with those offices to accomplish with this bill. And so when it is introduced, we intend to fully support it and hope to have support of a very broad bipartisan support of in both houses.
That's exactly right, Rush. So integrity and reauthorization, things that we all agree on. What about the things that are still hanging out there that maybe not everyone has agreed on? Bob, I'll ask you to take this one too. We'll hear from Cletus again soon, but I think Bob's best suited for this one. So if this EB-5 Reform and Integrity Bill passes, then is there going to be another chance? How might we later address some of these hanging issues like visa numbers and other issues like that that are still high priority and concern for regional centers?
Yeah, I mean, the big issue that we've all dealt with are the backlogged countries, which has caused consternation and rightfully caused a lot of angst from those countries. And we're very sensitive to that, and we're very committed to doing what we can in order to alleviate or to relieve the pressure there. But until we have a base bill addressing integrity reforms and long-term reauthorization, we will not be in a position to address that. Once that's in place, you know, if you want to put a wish list together, you know, we've been very vocal and very aggressive on the interpretation of derivatives as not counting against the visa cap. And fortunately, and it's with great joy, I guess, all of us have seen the White House movement toward addressing full immigration reform, which includes the EB-5, the EB categories, and EB-5 is part of that. And there's been statements issued regarding the elimination of derivatives, possibly even making more visas available to some categories. So that's something that's high on our list, but until we get legislation done, the base law, you know, we will not be able to move anything on that. And I think the comprehensive immigration reform package, which is laudable in many cases, in most cases, will take a little longer to get any kind of agreement in Congress on that because of the complexity of immigration and just, you know, all the controversy that surrounds it. So I guess we feel very good about what we're hearing. We also feel very good about the new director of DHS, Alejandro Mayorkas, Another big issue for the industry that really relates to his background as director of USCIS is just more consistent processing, more efficient processing, faster processing with case filings. We've all experienced, and our investors certainly have, delays, decisions that have been inconsistent. It was better 4+ years ago. Alejandro Maracres actually did a very good job when he was director of USCIS. He's very familiar with the program. He was very hands-on. He's very supportive. So we see that as kind of a byproduct of the changeover administrations, which will be good for the program. But we are very actively involved with DHS. The IIUSA have submitted a number of FOIA requests to try and understand why cases are hung up within USCIS, to move that along. And we're hopeful there'll be improvement there just because of perhaps a new perspective or attitude with respect to immigration. So those are probably the two really large ones that we'll be going after. We'd like to see a permanent authorization for the program rather than 5 years, but that'll be down the road. Again, the base program that's been proposed by Senator Grassley and Leahy, which we support, is sensible. It is very smart. It's fair for the industry. We can operate with it. It protects the investors, and it gives us a solid runway. And to get away from the start, stop that we've experienced, the last 18 authorizations were kind of short term. I mean, we had 1 month extensions in some cases, and that's not good for anybody. So we feel real good about where we are right now, and the plan that was put in place by the board of directors and IIUSA leadership and our lobbying group seems to have moved in a very good direction, and we're right there, and we feel very positive about it.
Thanks for that, Bob. So in this plan, having a 5-year reauthorization would certainly give us, as you said, some runway to address other issues through other avenues. If nothing else, the gift of time without all of those short successive extensions would be very welcome. All right, so Cletus, back to you finally. What happens if June rolls around, June 30, and the EB-5 Regional Center program is not reauthorized?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mariza. I think I'll take your runway analogy and extend it a little bit further. This is really, it's really like trying to leave Denver in January, when you have a pending storm coming in, you're at the airport and you don't know what's going to happen. Is our plane going to take off, or, we're going to sit here, we're going to cancel, we're going to get sent somewhere else or whatever. And so I think I'd like to just talk about what we know, talk about what a delay might look like, what cancellation might look like, and then last, why I'm optimistic that any delay would be very short, and the likelihood of cancellation is very small. That's my opinion. Lots of people have opinions, but that's mine. I'll explain why. So what we know is that nobody knows for sure what will happen, right? So nobody knows, and so we're all guessing. So the possibilities though are that we get reauthorized before June 30, 2021, excuse me, or after June 30, 2021, or we just get terminated altogether. And so those are the possibilities, but we can't get terminated without a cancellation first, right? So it's like if you're waiting for a plane, they're not going to come out and just cancel it. They're going to tell you, well, you got to wait, maybe the weather will clear or whatever. So that's where we are. So I will start with that first. So I would look at it at delays from the perspective of forms, because that's the easiest way to sort of split things up. There might be other ways to discuss it, but I look at it that way. So if you look at the 924, let's start with the 924A. That's the easiest, right? So that's the annual certification. So you still have to do it. So all the regional centers still have to comply with it, no matter what. And this is based on and all of this discussion is really based on what the government has said previously in similar times when there was a question about whether it would be reauthorized and when it would be reauthorized, whether a gap and so on. So the 924A is really easy. You just need to file it. So for the 924 itself, either for a new regional center or for a project, that will depend. So if it's pending, we would expect them to hold it in abeyance. So, because the government doesn't know either what's going to happen. So they just hold on to it and wait and see what happens. New ones won't be accepted because there technically wouldn't be a program, for them to participate in. So they won't accept those. Moving to 829s from the investor perspective, an 829 is mostly after things have already been completed. And so someone's already a conditional resident. So the expectation is they would be able to finish out because they already complied with the program that existed, and the regional center existence wouldn't have any direct legal impact on the 829 itself. And then the 526s and the 820 and the 485s, we would expect them to accept them, but just hold them in abeyance because they just don't know what's going to happen. And then, of course, if the program does get reauthorized, even with a delay, then it would restart and everybody would start moving, all the cases would start moving again. So then with respect to cancellation, there's some certainty and some less certainty. So the certainty is, well, at least we would expect. The certainty would be that no new regional center-based 526s would be accepted because technically there wouldn't be right at this moment, at the time that the program is temporarily stopped. So they would have to wait until it started again. It's potential that everyone's short of a conditional green card, everybody's sort of getting ready to file their 829, could lose out. That's a possibility. But I think the most likely scenario is they have, that in the past they said that when there was some discussion, Congress apparently was saying, well, maybe we'll have an orderly wind down, which would imply that existing 526s, even though the program was canceled, they would still adjudicate it as though the program were still in effect. And I think that there's some legal arguments that you could make for allowing them to go forward. And I think that the government could do that. Again, nobody knows, but that's my take on sort of what could happen. So why am I optimistic? So as Bob alluded to, and I think Rush did as well, is that nobody wants the program dead. The regional center, EB-5 by itself, the permanent program, it just doesn't raise enough money. It doesn't create enough American jobs. And so the regional centers are really the supercharger that makes the program go. And it's what created all the jobs. It's raised all the money. And so nobody wants it dead. I mean, it's job creation at no taxpayer expense. So it's just like a no-brainer to keep it going. So then the question is like, why are we in this sort of predicament this time? It's somewhat different from previous ones where we have been decoupled. And so it really has to do with a difference in strategy. So IIUSA is really interested in integrity measures, and we're willing to accept integrity measures. We're willing to push for them, and we are pushing for them. But there's a small vocal outside group that prefers their strategy is just different. They want the program to continue too, but their strategy is to argue about preference upgrades before they go through security. And so it's a question of which strategy we should use. And so IIUSA being focused on integrity, we say, let's do integrity. Let's get the program set up with, pristine integrity, and then we'll move on to other things. But some vocal opposition, basically some vocal people outside, prefer to just argue for, that we shouldn't go through integrity, we shouldn't go through security unless we get, program upgrades first. Mm-hmm. That being as it is, everybody agrees the program should still go forward. And so that's what I think is likely to happen. Also, even in the worst case scenario is if you start talking about a potential cancellation, in the past, Congress has said, well, it's like, maybe we'll just wind down the program, in a proper way, sort of like a bankruptcy or something. We'll just do this orderly wind down. But the thing is that that's not always, that requires a lot of discussion, like how that would work and stuff like that. And in talking about it, they will realize that it's nonsense to wind the program down. And while they're thinking about it, it will allow us more time to push for getting the program reauthorized in the first place. And so that's why I'm optimistic. I think that, again, nobody knows anything for sure, but I'm optimistic about it.
Thank you, Cletus. I love your analogy of the airport. So might we have a little delay perhaps, but likely the plane's going to take off and you're going to get to where you need to go. So that was really helpful. And there is such momentum already behind the EB-5 Regional Center program that, you know, almost 30-year existence and all of it moving forward. It seems that this opportunity here may re-energize it, may bring a different type of integrity, that's the word, to the program. And so we're hopeful that that is our next best step. Thank you so much for laying it all out. I know we got some questions in the chat, which I'm going to encourage everyone again to please send those to education@iiusa.org. We'd love to get to those, and we love your insights and comments as well. So now that we know what redeployment is, what IIUSA is doing to advocate for redeployment, what happens if we likely get the passage of the bill that we're all behind, what happens if we don't get redeployment? I'm sorry, redeployment. Have I been saying redeployment?
No.
You can tell I deal a lot in redeployment. Reauthorization, if we get reauthorization. So if I were on the call right now, I might be thinking, okay, great. So I'm glad IIUSA is doing some things on our behalf. I'm my own person. What can I do to help? And so, Rush, can you give the folks on the line an idea of how they might be able to help right now?
And I see that they've put up the slide that ties right into what I'm getting ready to say, which is IIUSA has created a movement, a group that is called Coalition to Save and Create Jobs. And you'll see the link to that on this slide. You can also get to it through the IIUSA website, but we encourage everyone to join that coalition. I've joined that coalition on behalf of the private nonprofit that I'm associated with. I've had mayors here in Arkansas, county judges. I've requested the state chamber, our state secretary of commerce, even strategically planning to ask our governor, who is former deputy secretary at Homeland Security, to join. But if you and others can join that coalition to save and create jobs, that's what will show the momentum that we have for this reauthorization measure. As some of the chat comments note, there's what about Dick Durbin, or what about, you know, so-and-so. Obviously, those are strategies that our lobbyists are working on, and we understand we need to work through the current leadership of judiciary, the current leadership of both House and Senate. And there are strategies for that. There's reach out that's being done. I know Senator Leahy has reached out to Senator Durbin and Senator Schumer about wanting to get this measure to the finish line this time. We all need to do our part as well by joining this coalition to save and create jobs, not just joining ourselves, but encouraging our community leaders, state industry associations, chambers of commerce, elected officials, nonprofits, businesses, anybody can join that coalition. It's a very simple questionnaire that you fill out, and that'll help us when we go to the Hill to lobby for the passage of this long-term reauthorization. We can show them, here are all the organizations that are in support of this measure. So encourage you to do that. If you have any questions about that, contact the staff at IIUSA, and they can certainly help walk you through that.
And Rush, there's no cost to join that organization either. It's just kind of clicking on the link, correct?
No, you can make a contribution, but no, there's no cost to joining that organization. Absolutely.
Great, thank you guys. So yes, please check out and join the free Coalition to Save and Create Jobs. And there's going to be a website link to that included in the print version of these FAQs that we've just discussed that will be posted on IIUSA's website. I think there are going to be lots of links to where you can connect with the coalition. So please join, and then also keep your eyes out for other emails from IIUSA and other ways that you might be able to get involved as June approaches. But on behalf of IIUSA, I'd like to thank our panelists and our attendees for your time and attention, and I'll kick it back over to Ashley.
Thank you very much, Mariza. And yes, as Mariza said, be looking out for a lot of emails from us over the next couple of months. We're not trying to be annoying. We just have a lot of information to get out there, and it's go time. So we're looking forward to everyone being engaged and helping us get across the finish line. Just before we wrap up here, I wanted to either remind everyone or let everyone know that we have our EB-5 Leaders Advocacy Summit coming up at the beginning of April 6th and 7th. It is free to attend. We're not quite ready to meet in person again, unfortunately, yet, so this will be virtual. I encourage you to go online. You see the link right there. Maybe one of my colleagues can send that link also out over the chat. We just sent the link for the Coalition to Save and Create Jobs as well. But certainly you can find this on our website. We encourage everyone to sign up and attend. We actually just announced the schedule yesterday, so it's going to be not quite as long as our event back in the fall, but it'll be a great 2 days of programming. So thank you again, everyone, for attending. Again, as Mariza mentioned before, if you have any questions, please email them to the email address you see on your screen there, education@iiusa.org. I know we had some questions coming in. I did record them, but do encourage you to email them to us so we have that record. And as Mariza said, we can try to address those in a different form at a later date. But we appreciate everyone attending, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.